November 1, 1943. 02:30 hours. Bougainville jungle. Sergeant Takeshi Yamamoto pressed his body against the sodden earth, feeling the moisture seep through his uniform. Around him, 12 men of the Imperial Japanese Army's 23rd Infantry Regiment lay hidden among the twisted roots and rotting vegetation. Mosquitoes whined in the suffocating darkness. Somewhere in the canopy above, a fruit bat shrieked, and moonlight filtered through gaps in the leaves like broken glass. Yamamoto smiled. The Americans were coming. Listen to them, he whispered to Private Sato beside him, like water buffalo crashing through the forest. No discipline, no grace. The sergeant gripped his Type 38 rifle, its long barrel perfect for the precise shooting that had made Japanese infantry feared across Asia. These Americans, he knew, would spray their Thompson submachine guns wildly into the jungle, those gangster guns from their crime films. Wasteful, undisciplined. His men had drilled for months on marksmanship, while the Americans relied on throwing lead like rice at a wedding. The footsteps grew closer, heavy boots rattling equipment. Yamamoto's finger found the trigger. Steady, he breathed. Let them come. In 90 seconds, 6 of his men would be dead. Yamamoto's confidence wasn't born from arrogance, it was doctrine. The Imperial Japanese Army had built its reputation on the rifle. Page 47 of the 1942 Infantry Manual stated it plainly. 1 shot, 1 kill. The warrior who masters his rifle masters the battlefield. Automatic weapons are the crutch of armies that lack spiritual discipline. Every Japanese soldier memorized these words. This philosophy had deep roots. In 1927, Japanese military observers in Shanghai watched Chinese warlords spray Thompson submachine guns wildly during street battles. Colonel Masanobu Tsuji, who would later plan the Malayan campaign, wrote dismissively, "The American Thompson gun, they call it the Chicago typewriter, turns soldiers into ammunition wasters. 1 disciplined rifleman is worth 10 men with such weapons." The numbers seemed to prove him right. Japanese infantry doctrine allocated just 100 rounds per soldier, forcing marksmanship through scarcity. Americans carried 200 rounds or more. Because they need them, Japanese instructors sneered. When Japan finally developed its own submachine gun, the Type 100, they manufactured fewer than 10,000 throughout the entire war. The Americans? They would produce 1.5 million Thompsons. But this wasn't mere tactical preference, it was spiritual conviction. Yamato Damashi, the Japanese spirit, would triumph over material excess. Bushido taught that the warrior's will could overcome any technological disadvantage. Automatic weapons were seen as compensation for weak spirits and poor training. The Americans hide behind their machines, training sergeants proclaimed. We strike with precision and courage. This belief system had conquered half of Asia. It had driven the British from Singapore and the Americans from the Philippines. Why would jungle fighting be any different? They were about to find out. The reckoning began on Guadalcanal, 15 months before Yamamoto's ambush. August 7th, 1942. The 1st Marine Raider Battalion waded ashore carrying something the Japanese had dismissed as a gangster's toy. Lieutenant Kenji Hatano of the 124th Infantry Regiment would never forget his first encounter with Marines wielding Thompsons in the suffocating jungle near the Tenaru River. We advanced in perfect formation, Hatano later wrote to his wife. Our riflemen picked their targets carefully. Then the jungle exploded. The Americans fight like demons with their automatic weapons. The sound like ripping canvas mixed with thunder. Men fell before we could even see the enemy. The statistics from that first engagement were sobering. 34 Japanese dead, 3 Marines killed. The careful marksmanship that had terrorized Chinese forces meant nothing when 45 caliber slugs tore through the undergrowth at 850 rounds per minute. But it was Edson's Ridge that truly shattered Japanese assumptions. September 13th to 14, 1942, Colonel Kiyonao Ichiki led 3,000 men in a night assault against 840 Marine Raiders and Paramarines. The Japanese came in waves, screaming, "Banzai!" and "Marine, you die." They met a wall of Thompson fire. The ridge became a killing ground, remembered Sergeant Mitchell Page. They kept coming and we kept firing. The Thompsons never stopped chattering. By dawn, over 600 Japanese lay dead. The Marines lost 31. Desperate Japanese officers ordered soldiers to capture Thompsons for study. Private Tadashi Suzuki succeeded. dragging one from a dead Marine. His unit gathered around the weapon like archaeologists examining an artifact. They test-fired it, marveling at its rate of fire, its stopping power, its simplicity. Still, Suzuki's sergeant concluded, it is a weapon for the spiritually weak. The Japanese made adjustments, attack in smaller groups, use more grenades, strike from multiple angles. But these were bandages on a severed artery. The fundamental assumption, that disciplined riflemen would always triumph, remained unchanged. On Guadalcanal, Japanese forces began calling the Thompson the death rattle. They hadn't yet realized it was sounding for them. The death rattle spread across the Pacific like a plague. New Guinea, March 1943. Captain Hiroshi Nakamura watched his carefully planned ambush disintegrate in 12 seconds. His after-action report, captured later at Hollandia, revealed growing alarm. The enemy's automatic weapons negate all advantages of concealment. Before our riflemen can acquire targets, the Americans saturate our positions with fire. What takes us 5 aimed shots, they accomplish with 50 bullets. The mathematics were merciless. In the jungle, firefights erupted at 25 to 50 yards, sometimes less. At that range, a Japanese rifleman might manage 5 aimed rounds per minute with his Type 38. A Marine with a Thompson could unleash 600 to 700. When a 4-man fire team carried 2 Thompsons, they could put more lead downrange in 6 seconds than a Japanese squad could in a minute. But it wasn't just volume. Lieutenant James Caldwell, 1st Marine Division, explained the Thompson's jungle supremacy. In the bush, you don't see targets. You see movement, shadows, muzzle flashes. With a rifle, you get one chance. Miss and you're working the bolt while Charlie's drawing a bead. With a Thompson, you hose down the whole area. Those fat 45 slugs punch through vegetation that would deflect rifle rounds. The Marines evolved their tactics around this reality. Thompson gunners walked point and flank. When contact came, they didn't aim, they swept. Rifle squads became Thompson support units, protecting the automatic weapons that did the real killing. Japanese documents captured on Bougainville showed deepening concern. A battalion commander's journal from October 1943. The enemy's Thompson guns have changed everything. Our traditional night attacks fail because they create walls of fire we cannot penetrate. Banzai charges that scattered Chinese armies are slaughtered before reaching enemy lines. Private Yukio Tanabe survived such a charge on New Georgia. We burst from the jungle screaming. I saw the American position, just shadows behind logs. Then the Thompson started. Like horizontal rain. The man beside me, his chest opened up. Another spun around, jaw gone. I dove down, played dead. 30 men charged. 6 survived. The Japanese tried everything. Snipers targeted Thompson gunners first. They attacked during magazine changes. They used smoke, darkness, rain. Nothing worked. In engagement after engagement, the pattern repeated. Japanese precision riflemen against American automatic weapons. The outcome never varied. Colonel Susumu Nishiura's intelligence summary from late 1943 admitted what frontline troops already knew. The enemy's tactical superiority stems primarily from their automatic weapons. Our spiritual advantage cannot overcome this material deficit. But in Tokyo, the high command still clung to doctrine. One shot, one kill. Yamato Damashi would prevail. Tell that to the corpses piling up from Guadalcanal to Saipan. The corpses told a technical story that Tokyo's doctrine couldn't explain away. The Thompson's 45 ACP round was a 230-grain sledgehammer, traveling at 850 feet per second. The Japanese Type 38's 6.5mm Arisaka fired a 139-grain bullet at 2,500 feet per second, a needle designed for long-range precision. In open terrain, the Arisaka won. In the jungle, physics favored the Thompson. Marine weapons instructors at Guadalcanal conducted informal tests. The 6.5mm round, when fired through dense vegetation, deflected off branches, leaves, even bamboo shoots. Its high velocity and small diameter made it unstable when it hit obstacles. The 45 ACP? It smashed through. Its fat, slow-moving slug maintained trajectory through foliage that would deflect rifle rounds. Think of it like throwing a baseball versus a dart through a bush, explained Gunnery Sergeant Paul Morrison. The dart might be faster, but it'll bounce off twigs. The baseball powers through. The Thompson M1928A1 that Marines first carried weighed 10.8 pounds empty. Heavy, the Japanese scoffed, but that weight meant stability during automatic fire. The M1 and M1A1 variants, simplified for mass production, dropped to 10.45 pounds while increasing reliability. In the jungle, where engagement ranges rarely exceeded 50 yards, the Thompson's theoretical maximum range of 160 yards was irrelevant. Production told another story. Auto Ordnance and its contractors manufactured 1.5 million Thompsons between 1940 and 1945. Savage Arms alone produced 500 daily at peak output. Japan's Nambu Type 100? Fewer than 10,000 total, trickling out at 50 per day when materials were available. But the real advantage lay in reliability. The Thompson's simple blowback operation shrugged off jungle conditions that crippled complex mechanisms. Corporal David Chen's squad tested their weapons after 2 weeks in New Guinea's monsoon. The Garans were rusting. The bars jammed with mud. The Thompsons? Dump out the water, slap in a magazine, and they ran. Ammunition logistics completed the equation. Each 45 ACP cartridge weighed 0.74 ounces. A 20-round magazine weighed 1 pound. Heavy, yes, but American supply chains delivered ammunition by the shipload. LSTs disgorged millions of rounds onto beachheads. C-47s dropped ammunition crates into jungle clearings. Japanese soldiers counted bullets. Americans counted crates. The Thompson wasn't designed for jungle warfare. John T. Thompson envisioned it for trench clearing in World War I. But by accident of history and industrial might, America had mass-produced the perfect jungle weapon just as it needed one. Sergeant Yamamoto, hidden in his ambush position, still believed his Type 38 rifle and warrior spirit would prevail. The next 90 seconds would educate him. The next 90 seconds would educate many men, on both sides of the trigger. PFC James Morrison never wanted to carry the Thompson. At Cape Gloucester in December 1943, the 19-year-old from Ohio drew the short straw. Too heavy, he'd complained. Makes you a target. 6 weeks later, he wrote his mother, "The Thompson saved my life more times than I can count. When the Japs come screaming out of the jungle at night, you don't aim. You hold down the trigger and sweep. Nothing else stops them. I kiss this gun every morning." Morrison's letter continued. "Last Tuesday, 3 of them jumped us from spider holes. Bill tried to work his rifle bolt. They bayoneted him. I just turned and fired. All 3 down in 2 seconds. I can't sleep sometimes thinking how young they looked. But it's them or us, Mom. And this Thompson makes sure it's them." Corporal Hiroshi Tanaka understood Morrison's arithmetic from the other side. His diary, captured after he died on Guam, traced a soldier's journey from confidence to terror. June 12, 1944. The Americans waste ammunition like rich men waste rice. Our superior marksmanship will prevail. June 20th, Sergeant Ito killed today. He fired 2 perfect shots. The Americans sprayed 20 bullets. Ito is dead. June 28th, we call them death rattles now. That sound, tucka 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 tucka, then screaming. Always screaming. Schleither, I dream of that sound, we all do. When the rattles start, brave men soil themselves. I am no longer brave. Lieutenant Robert Hayes began the war as a rifle platoon leader who shared the Marine Corps' traditional skepticism of automatic weapons. Spray and pray, he'd called it at Paris Island. Saipan changed him. Leading a patrol through sugarcane fields on June 20, 1944, his unit walked into a Japanese ambush. The Thompson gunners saved them. The cane exploded with rifle fire, Hayes recalled in 1987. My riflemen couldn't see targets, couldn't return effective fire. But Corporal Watts and PFC Delgado just opened up with their Thompsons, hosing down the whole field. The Japanese fire stopped. We found 7 bodies later. After that, I made sure every patrol had at least 2 Thompsons up front. Hayes restructured his entire platoon around the Thompson, abandoning traditional rifle squad tactics. By war's end, he'd written 3 training manuals on automatic weapons in jungle warfare. Masao Sato offered the enemy's perspective. Interviewed in 1995, the Peleliu survivor, then a grandfather in Osaka, still flinched when describing the Thompson's impact. We were taught that Americans were soft, weak, that their weapons made them lazy. But laziness didn't kill my friends. Bullets did. Many, many bullets. Sato's voice dropped. Our officers finally understood too late. You cannot fight machines with spirit. You cannot stop bullets with courage. The Thompson taught us humility. Those who learned this lesson lived. Those who didn't. He gestured at old photographs of his unit. 36 men. 3 survived. These individual stories multiplied across the Pacific, each Thompson burst rewriting Japanese tactical assumptions in blood and brass. These individual stories reached a crescendo during Operation Cartwheel, where Japanese tactical doctrine finally shattered against American firepower. The statistics were damning. In 1942, Japanese ambushes in Burma and the Philippines achieved a 73% success rate, killing or routing enemy forces before withdrawal. By late 1943 in the Solomons, that number plummeted to 19%. The difference? Thompson's captured field orders from October 1943 revealed frantic adaptations. Avoid close engagement with enemy automatic weapons, read 1 Battalion Directive. Attack only when numerical superiority exceeds 4.1. Another advised, do not bunch up. The American Thompson gun kills many with single burst. These weren't tactics, they were admissions of defeat, which brings us back to Bougainville, November 1, 1943. Arrow 2:32 hours. Sergeant Yamamoto's ambush erupted perfectly. His riflemen fired with trained precision. Private Sato dropped an American point man with a clean headshot. For 3 seconds, Japanese training seemed vindicated. Then the Thompsons answered. The jungle erupted in converging streams of .45 caliber fire. Muzzle flashes lit the darkness like strobes. Yamamoto watched Private Ito, his best marksman, torn apart before he could work his rifle bolt. Corporal Nakamura screamed as bullets shattered his knee, his hip, his chest in ascending progression. The careful ambush dissolved into chaos. Fall back, Yamamoto screamed, but his voice drowned in the mechanical chatter of American guns. In 90 seconds, 6 of his 12 men were dead, 3 wounded. The Americans lost 1 killed, 2 wounded. The mathematics of modern warfare had spoken. 2 weeks later, General Harukichi Hyakutake issued a classified bulletin that would have been heresy months earlier. The enemy's superiority in automatic weapons negates our traditional tactical advantages. Until we achieve parity in firepower, avoid decisive engagement. The Imperial Army's November 1943 Field Manual revision included a new chapter, Countering Enemy Automatic Weapons. It recommended dispersed formations, increased use of mortars, and, most tellingly, withdrawal when facing concentrated Thompson fire. Lieutenant Colonel Jiro Wakatsuki, studying the Bougainville reports, wrote the epitaph for Japanese rifle doctrine. We trained for the wrong war. While we perfected marksmanship, the Americans perfected mass production. Each Thompson represents not superior warrior spirit, but superior industrial capacity. We are fighting their factories and losing. The turning point wasn't a single battle, but a recognition. The age of the rifle had ended. The jungle belonged to automatic weapons. Yamamoto, bleeding from Thompson fragments in his shoulder, understood this as he dragged Private Sato's corpse through the mud. The Americans hadn't even pursued. They didn't need to. Yamamoto's blood trail through the Bougainville mud led all the way to Tokyo. The panicked response was immediate. In December 1943, the Nambu Type 100 submachine gun, previously an afterthought, became a crash priority. Production orders increased from 50 to 200 units daily. But Japan's overtaxed factories, starved of materials and skilled workers, managed only 75. By comparison, America's Thompson production never dropped below 500 daily. We need 100,000 submachine guns immediately, demanded General Hideki Tojo in a January 1944 staff meeting. The production minister's response was bleak. We can deliver 8,000 by year's end if we halt rifle production. The room fell silent. Japan couldn't match American firepower even if it abandoned everything else. The tactical changes were even more profound. The January 1944 emergency revision to infantry tactics read like a surrender document. Close combat with American forces is prohibited unless absolutely necessary. The same army that had conquered Asia through aggressive bayonet charges now ordered its soldiers to maintain distance. Captain Kenji Yamada, training officer at the Toyama Infantry School, watched Doctrine collapse in real time. We spent years teaching that spirit conquers material. Now we tell soldiers to run from American automatic weapons. The men are confused, demoralized. They ask, if spirit cannot overcome bullets, why are we fighting? Captured documents revealed plummeting morale. A private's letter from Saipan, June 1944. The officers lied to us. They said American weapons made them weak. But we are the weak ones bringing swords to a machine gun fight. Another soldier's diary. I no longer believe in victory. I only believe in death. This despair metastasized into something darker. Colonel Masaharu Homa's classified report from July 1944 drew the terrible connection. Conventional victory against American firepower is impossible. We must consider alternative methods of attack that negate their material advantages. 3 months later, the first organized kamikaze units formed. Vice Admiral Takejiro Onishi, architect of the suicide attacks, privately admitted, "The Thompson and its brothers have made traditional warfare impossible. We can only trade our lives for theirs." The cascade was complete. What began as contempt for gangster guns had transformed into an admission that Japan could only fight by dying. The Thompson hadn't just killed Japanese soldiers, it had killed Japanese military doctrine. By March 1945, Japanese training manuals included a new section, Spiritual Preparation for Certain Death. The warriors who once mocked American cowardice now taught their soldiers that the only honorable tactic was suicide. The Thompson's ultimate victory wasn't measured in bodies, but in the complete destruction of an enemy's will to fight conventionally. The Thompson's ultimate victory was written in Japan's post-war soul. By April 1945, Japanese training camps echoed with a new mantra: beware the death rattle. Recruits who once spent weeks perfecting rifle marksmanship now drilled primarily on avoiding American automatic weapons. The Type 38 rifle, symbol of Japanese military tradition, became secondary to survival tactics against Thompsons. 18-year-old Hiroshi Matsuda, drafted in March 1945, recalled his training. The sergeant held up a Thompson captured on Iwo Jima like a religious relic. "This," he said, "is why we lose. We spent more time learning to identify its sound than firing our own weapons." The gun we mocked had become our nightmare. Japan's surrender brought painful self-examination. The 1946 Analysis of Defeat, compiled by former Imperial Army staff officers for MacArthur's headquarters, devoted an entire chapter to small arms disparity. The Thompson submachine gun proved decisive in jungle warfare, it concluded. Our failure to recognize and counter this threat stemmed from institutional arrogance regarding Western weapons technology. The statistics were stark. In 1941, Japanese doctrine allocated 80% of infantry training to rifle marksmanship, 5% to automatic weapons. By 1945, those numbers had reversed, too late. American forces averaged 1 automatic weapon per 4 soldiers. Japan managed 1 per 40. The human reconciliation came slower. At a 1995 veterans reunion in Hawaii, Sergeant Takeshi Yamamoto, survivor of that Bougainville ambush, met former Marine Thompson gunner Jack Patterson. "Your gun," Yamamoto said simply. "It changed everything." Patterson nodded. "Saved my life more than once." They drank sake together, 2 old men who understood what military planners had missed. Professor Akira Tanaka of the Japanese Defense University, writing in 2010, offered historical perspective. The Thompson forced Japan to confront a fundamental truth: industrial democracy's ability to arm every soldier with devastating firepower trumped our warrior tradition. This lesson shaped the post-war self-defense forces, which prioritized automatic weapons from inception. Indeed, when Japan rebuilt its military in 1954, the new ground self-defense force immediately adopted the American M3 submachine gun, the Thompson's descendant. The warriors who once carried swords into battle now trained with automatic weapons as primary arms. The transformation was complete. The Chicago typewriter, once dismissed as a gangster's toy, had rewritten Japan's military DNA. In military academies from Tokyo to Kyoto, officer candidates study the Pacific War's central lesson: never mock the enemy's weapons, especially when they can produce millions of them. The Thompson story transcends its mechanical simplicity. It stands as history's brutal reminder that military hubris kills more soldiers than enemy bullets. Japan's dismissal of the gangster gun reflected a deeper blindness: the dangerous assumption that cultural superiority translates to tactical advantage. The Imperial Army's faith in spiritual strength over material reality cost hundreds of thousands of lives. Each burst of Thompson fire challenged not just Japanese soldiers, but an entire worldview that mistook tradition for truth. The lesson resonates beyond 1945. How many militaries have dismissed inferior enemies only to discover that garage-built IEDs can cripple billion-dollar tanks. That commercial drones can neutralize sophisticated air defenses. The Thompson teaches that effectiveness, not elegance, wins wars. Industrial capacity remains democracy's ultimate weapon. America didn't outfight Japan, it outproduced them. While Japanese craftsmen hand-fitted rifle stocks, Detroit assembly lines stamped out Thompsons like automobiles. Each Thompson represented not superior warrior skill but superior industrial organization. Modern militaries studying Pacific battles recognize this truth. Logistics and production win prolonged conflicts. The Thompson's influence rippled through weapons development worldwide. Post-war armies universally adopted automatic weapons as standard infantry arms. The AK-47, M16, and every modern assault rifle trace their doctrinal DNA to lessons learned in Pacific jungles. The age of the marksman yielded to the age of volume fire. Yet the deepest lesson remains human. Sergeant Yamamoto's transformation from mockery to respect mirrors every military force to confront uncomfortable truths. Pride in tradition becomes deadly when it blinds leaders to evolving reality. The graveyard of military history fills with armies that confused what they wished to be true with what was. Today's asymmetric conflicts echo Bougainville's jungle. Somewhere, a military professional dismisses an enemy's primitive weapons or inferior tactics. History suggests they should listen for the death rattle instead. The Thompson's legacy isn't its mechanical action or .45 caliber punch. It's the eternal reminder that in war, respect for enemy capabilities isn't courtesy, it's survival.